Now we're going to work on ground driving a little bit more here and actually do some ground driving since now we've gone through all the preparation where she's been desensitized to the lines, she's followed the rope pressure around, so she turned away from me and followed it back around, and we did some in-hand steering so that she could steer both directions and stop. Now she's ready to actually do a little bit of ground driving. So you can see from this angle that I'm just kind of feeding that line. Oh, well, I guess the top. Usually I do it from the side because the top is kind of more where your reins would be. But I'm putting it through the one of the rings so that the line doesn't get like too low and get caught like on one of her legs. And then I'm just putting that through the ring and then attaching it to her halter. And then her halter is just a rope halter with metal rings on either side, which is really great for teaching a horse to steer. So I'm not really sure why at the time I wanted to put the line up to the top of the ring. I think it was just to keep the line off the ground, but that is going to put a different pressure on the horse's face. So just remember that if you're putting them on. Like right now, if I was doing this again, I'd probably put it on the very bottom, like the very last, the very bottom ring, so that it's like as similar as it could be to lunging. So I'm gonna get my reins or my lines figured out, and then I just leave that one over top of her so that I have both of them on one side, and then I'll get them organized. And then once she starts moving, then I can toss that other line up and over her, and that just kind of works the best. So I ask her to go forward. I don't want her to face me, I just want her to go over and out, kind of like on the same as a lunging circle. So I'll have her go forward. That looks good. Okay, that's what I was doing. So I have the lines higher up so that I can just kind of pick them up and put them over her instead of her going one direction and then the other line's behind her and she's trying to turn around like you saw in one of the other videos. So that makes sense is why I was doing that. I forgot I had done that. So you could do it this way too. So I might put it back on the top ring. It kind of depends. It's going to be very similar because once she's doing this, like right now I can pick them up and put them up over her hip, and then I can easily steer her either way. So that is a good thing to do. But right now, like here, I have the line behind her too, and that's what you want to end up with when you're ground driving. So you could transition between the two as well, because I need that horse to be desensitized to the lines to where I can toss it up and over their hip, because I'm going to do that every single time I go and feed. So, or most of the times, depending on the horse. I have one horse in training that I do that every single time just because he's more flighty tense, worried more of a horse, and like Dakota is not, so I could probably leave that other rope around behind her and I don't think she'd worry too much. So I'm asking her to go to the right here. She was going to the left. She was a little confused there. She figured it out. I'm gonna click her and go up to her. So I gotta be careful with that. Like here, I'm leaving that rope behind her hind legs. I gotta keep that rope up above her hocks. I don't want to get too low. I don't want to get stepped on. But she does have the halter on for that reason too. So it wouldn't hurt her mouth. And then she goes off and I need to use that outside left rein to get her back going. So this looks really nice. And I'm going to start with very gradual turns and then do more just, more intense ones, more tight ones is what I was looking for. So that's what we're doing here. And I just want her to go forward and get her used to me being behind her. Like I kind of start off to the side and then I'll go kind of right behind her tail. But off to the side works really well there. We're going to do like a little half turn here and that looks really nice. So yeah, just those little sessions with me asking her to, or those little sessions of me preparing her to ground drive have definitely made a huge difference, because this looks way better than it did in the other video where she was confused and she was trying to turn around and she had no idea. So because now she's gotten the idea that she can follow that rope that you've seen a couple times with that outside steering. And here, right here before she stopped, I asked her to stop with both reins. So that goes back to that driving or riding like in hand, like from the ground. So she didn't have those skills at the beginning of not the last video, the one before, and you could definitely tell the difference. So that's very important. And it's very important also that your horse can stand still while you stand back here. I don't want them going forward every single time I go back there or as soon as the lines are set up. So we got to watch yourself too, because I know we're stuck on like, oh, let's go forward, let's ground drive, let's do all these things. But we also need to teach the horse to stop and stand and wait for us, because that's very important. There we go. have her go the other way. This looks really good. I like to start in a round pen just because I have a little bit more control in here. She can't get too far away, so I like that. And then if I want to, I can kind of go back to the inside, toward the inside of the pen, and do like more of a lunging position, kind of help her out if she were to get stuck and confused. So that's another benefit as well, which you could still do in an arena, but since you have like the panels here in the circle, it kind of just helps you a little bit. I'm asking her to go this other direction here to the left because she's a little stuck. I'm trying to use the panels to help her. There we go, because she can't go to the right. I mean, she can, but that panel's really blocking her. So that looks good. I should be paying attention to that rope too, because that back line is down below her hock. So now I like to toss it up over her hip, and then I have it, and I have both lines then, and I can feed from there. So that's something I would change in the future. And that could have been me again, just thinking, oh well, she's really quiet, she's not gonna do anything. So that's probably why I did that. Okay, so she can go back and forward again. I'm just kind of raising up the ropes here to try and like shorten them as quickly as I can. And at the time, like I'm holding kind of all of the excess in that one hand and then just steering with both hands. And now I like to just kind of toss them on the ground, but it can be trickier when you're in a smaller pen like this and when you have like obstacles like jumps, barrels, mounting block, things like that. So she's still a little bit all over the place. She doesn't know exactly what it is that I want, but she is cooperating really well. She's got all the basics. Like she's just kind of slow and thinking it through. So I like that. I think I asked her to halt there. I can't really tell that well, but she's being nice and slow and methodical about it and not just rushing through things. Some horses will be doing that though, so make sure you do a ton of desensitizing with those horses first and then take it very easy, gradually. Like I would work on just like lunging with that line behind them for a while and then gradually moving behind them and asking them to steer a little bit and then going back to that lunging circle, just so it's very clear, easy transition because lunging is something they're familiar with. So but she's looking quite good. I really like that she's stopping and standing and waiting, and the clicker training is definitely what's helping with that because she knows to stop and stand. As soon as she hears the click, she stops and stands. So that's really helping me into where she's not just spinning around immediately. So that is super helpful. I mean, if you're not going to use clicker training, I would work on that halt and stand a lot. Like, have him go forward a couple steps, halt, stand. Go forward a couple steps, halt, stand. That halt and stand has to be solid, so the horse doesn't want to turn around back to you. This looks nice. Kind of adjust my lines. It's a lot of work, a lot of adjusting. Asking her to halt here. I'm trying to pull that right rein out so that I'm shortening the slack, taking the slack out of the line. And she did a nice halt. You can also use the round pen for the stopping. That's another reason why I like it, is you can kind of steer right toward it and use that fence to help stop the horse. And obviously you can do that in an arena as well, but you have more available fence when you're in that smaller pen. You don't have to go quite as far until you get to it. So but that's another thing that I like to do. There she kind of walked off on her own. I also try to keep her tail out of the way. And I try not to get the line up under her tail too. You can definitely desensitize for that. But I've found with my ground driving, like it usually doesn't really go in there, so I'm not too concerned about it. If it did, I could just have her stop it and switch the lines. So I was doing a little bit of desensitizing there. That looks good. She didn't change her pace at all. She just kept going, so that's really exactly what I'm looking for. So that's pretty much all. That's pretty good first ground driving for her. Couldn't really ask for much more, but hopefully you can see the difference between like 2 videos ago when I tried to ground drive her originally and I had those little holes missing, and now even though I've only done each of those sessions once, like I did where she followed the pressure around and then where I rode her from the ground and did her that steering and stopping from the ground. I did each of those once on the video. And now I'm going into the ground driving and it made a world of difference. So that's really important. If you check all your boxes, and I mean, your horse might need more than one session, obviously, but making sure that they have all of the tools they need to be successful at ground driving is very, very important because there's so many different things that can go wrong with that. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that. So after her little ground driving session, I'm just going to do a quick review on mounting. So I'm just going to hop on her bareback again here. Just have her in the halter with just the line connected so I can just slide off if I need to, or I can bend her with that one line too. So hop on her. She picked her head up a little bit. That again might have been just in response to the click. Not super sure. But then I'm getting on her, sitting there, and then hopping off and then feeding her because I'm trying to see if she's uncomfortable with me sitting on her, like from and taking the treat because I'm sitting on her, or if she's uncomfortable with taking the treat just like when I'm above her is what I'm trying to do. And she looks really pretty relaxed at this point, so that looks really good. I'm happy with that. So sit for a second, I can click, slide off, and then give her a treat. So this is definitely an improvement for sure. Than you've seen in the last couple videos where she was really swinging her head around, had a lot of tension. I definitely think it had something to do with the beginning where she was uncomfortable with me just getting near her back, and then kind of me forcing it and not paying attention to those small body language cues. And then when I was actually getting on her, is probably uncomfortable for her. And I think that's kind of the root of where all that behavior was coming from. Because now later on, I ride her in just the saddle, and all of that behavior is gone. So I think it was just part of her when I'm riding her bareback is just uncomfortable for her. I think that played a huge role in it. And then I made it worse with holding the food and trying to get her to like turn her head slower when that only made it worse because I was like withholding the food, so she was worried about not getting it because that's exactly what I was doing instead of just giving it to her, and then I made it much worse. So but this lesson specifically, she looks a lot better. She was a little fast there, but not as bad as I had seen her before. So she's standing nicely for me to get on. That looks pretty good. Yeah, that's not bad. We had some improvements here. I'm not too mad about that. But yeah, I like that I'm breaking it down too, where I'm just there, a little bit of tension there, yeah, where she's swinging her head around. But that could definitely be partially because I'm mixing positive and negative reinforcement as well. So that could be another thing.